Recently, Mormon elder Dallin Oaks gave a speech at Brigham Young University, Idaho regarding religious freedom and the aftermath of the church's involvement in California's Proposition 8. During his address, Oaks drew parallels between the backlash against Mormons following the passage of Prop 8 and the intimidation of black voters in the South during the civil rights movement. It's interesting that he would choose to make this particular comparison given the history of the LDS Church's relationship with black people. The Book of Mormon refers to a skin of blackness as being God's curse for unbelief. Brigham Young, the second president of the church, declared that Cain and his descendants carry a marking from God, a flat nose and black skin. He further claimed that this race is cursed to be the servants of servants, and that abolitionists could do nothing to change this. Brigham Young initiated the policy of excluding black members of the church from the priesthood and temple ceremonies, citing God's curse of blackness as justification. John Taylor, the third president of the church, stated that the cursed lineage of Cain persisted because it was necessary that the devil should have a representation upon the earth as well as God. Bruce McConkie, who served as a member of the church's Quorum of the 12 Apostles, claimed that, quote, "Those who were less valiant in pre-existence, and who thereby had certain spiritual restrictions imposed upon them during mortality, are known to us as the Negroes, and that the present status of the Negro rests purely and simply on the foundation of pre-existence." The LDS Church kept these racist policies in place until 1978, when they were rescinded after church leaders claimed to have received a new revelation from God. And during the civil rights movement, the church spoke out in strong support of racial segregation and against interracial marriage. Mormon elder Mark E. Peterson said, quote, "The Lord segregated the Negro, and who is man to change that segregation? And that intermarriage is a sin and against the command of God." The NAACP tried to meet with the church leadership to encourage them to support civil rights legislation, but they refused, with one apostle saying, "We have decided to remain silent." Ezra Taft Benson, who would later become president of the church, claimed that Martin Luther King was associated with communists and the so-called civil rights movement was a communist conspiracy. The LDS Church has an extensive history of treating black people as inherently inferior and working against the recognition of their civil rights. And yet Dallin Oaks has the audacity to compare the church to the very same group of people that they oppressed. It's even more outrageous that he would make such a comparison when Mormons are once again being criticized for opposing civil rights and eliminating the right to marry for same-sex couples. In June of 2008, the first presidency of the LDS Church distributed a letter to every congregation urging members to donate, volunteer, and do all they can to support Prop 8. Half of the donations to the Yes on 8 campaign were from Mormons, and private notes circulated among Mormon volunteers acknowledged that there wasn't much participation from non-Mormons. The church mobilized itself from the top down as a unified organization to pass Prop 8, ensuring that same-sex couples would no longer have the right to marry. Dallin Oaks called this a newly alleged civil right, and claimed that allowing same-sex marriage threatens the free exercise of religion. But same-sex marriage never prevented a single church, Mormon or otherwise, from freely practicing their faith amongst themselves in any way. No religion has been kept from exercising their freedom, either before Prop 8 when same-sex marriage was legal, or after Prop 8 when it was banned. The only people who have suffered a loss of freedom as a result of this are the same-sex couples who can no longer marry because of the Mormon crusade against their rights. Oaks casually referred to Prop 8 as a public contest in which opponents of gay rights prevailed. But this goes much further than gay rights. Same-sex marriage was legalized because the state constitution recognizes a fundamental right to marry, and the Equal Protection Clause requires that this right be extended to same-sex couples. The passage of Prop 8 overturned this, so that a certain class of citizens no longer has equal protection under the law or access to a fundamental right, simply because a majority decided against it. When rights that are supposed to be fundamental are instead subject to popular vote, this does threaten freedom, including that of religion. Every civil liberty is at risk when it requires the approval of a majority. If gay rights can be eliminated this way, so can any other right. Oaks referred to the free exercise of religion as a constitutional guarantee, which minority religions are especially dependent upon. If only he could understand that constitutional rights are meant to be guarantees, not uncertainties, and they do do serve to protect minorities from having their freedom curtailed by the whims of a majority, but his support of public contests over equal rights is completely incompatible with this. He has no regard for civil rights, and neither does the church he speaks for. They never did. They were against civil rights in the past, and they are against civil rights now. Mormons fight to oppose and destroy equal rights. Their church has proven itself to be actively dangerous and corrosive to civil liberties. For all their feigned anxiety over religious freedom, they are the ones who have placed everyone's rights in jeopardy. Dallin Oaks says he's seen a significant deterioration in the respect accorded to religion. Is it any wonder why? Nothing his religion has done here is respectable in the slightest. They've aligned themselves against the very principle of human equality under the law, and their destruction of an established right is disgraceful. They wanted to be responsible for this, and now they are being held responsible. If Mormons are truly concerned that freedom is threatened, they should stop threatening freedom.